Okay, I think we are live.
Okay.
And that's me. Okay, great. Here we are. I can see our comments and viewers as well. So welcome to
Okay.
everybody who's watching.
Hi.
And we're glad to have Ghufran with us as well. Yes.
Hi.
All right. Very good. So go ahead and say hi in the comments. For those of us who are here today, we're going to be talking, just having a conversation about startups and what is a startup and maybe some do's and don'ts for startups. But before we get started, Ghufran, you're in Lock 1, isn't that right?
Yeah, I am.
All right. So tell me, how was it today?
Well, it's been pretty busy today. We had, some encounters, business workshops, and a lot of people here. So it was fun.
Okay, great. Yeah. I've been teaching from home all day, so I had some complimentary classes and lots of conversations with students. And so it's been a good day. But yeah, maybe not as many people in my house as there are in the center, but
Definitely, yeah.
okay. But yeah, so actually was reading about startups, and of course, for those of you who are used to our lives and listen in, you know that we also do give away a free 2-week scholarship at the end of each live, and so you can be ready for that. You can be listening in for things that maybe will be the quiz question. But let's go ahead and start off. I was talking about startups and reading about startups and what really is a startup. So a startup is basically a company in its first stages. So a company that has people investing in it, someone is starting it and they have an idea, and there's a small team of people who are making the startup work. And then there's a lot of capital. That's another word for investment money that's being invested into the company. So basically a startup is like a small company. It's very flexible. Maybe it's something new. It's kind of creative. So something people create. What are some famous successful startups? Can you tell me any, Ghufran?
Well, I can think of Instagram, WhatsApp, Netflix, Uber. Um, what else?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest ones would be Airbnb, which is a great way for
Yes,
people to
Airbnb.
stay in a hotel, but not really
Mhm.
go to a hotel, just have a nice vacation somewhere. And anybody who has an empty house or apartment is able to make some money. And of course, the founders of Airbnb make a little bit of that. And so they had this idea, and what if we just let people kind of make their houses into hotels? Now it's worth a lot of money. And so, of course, that's a successful startup.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so lots of different ones that we could talk about. Well, WhatsApp is one that you mentioned, as well
Yeah,
as Netflix. Is there
Netflix.
any one startup that you think maybe is your favorite of those, of the list we talked about, or?
I think I would go with Netflix because they started as a very, very small company that delivers videos that had actual people giving videos to people's houses, and now it's like one of the biggest production companies, and it's making its own movies and its own shows. So that would be my favorite, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Netflix is huge now. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see that comment from Nabil as
Mhm.
well. So Uber is kind of similar to Airbnb, but
Yeah.
it let people use their cars for maybe an extra way to make some money as a taxi. And some people even work full time with Uber, and Lyft is another one similar to Uber.
Mhm.
Yeah, great startup companies. Good.
Mhm. Yes.
Instagram would be an example of a startup that worked really hard and then got bought out by Facebook. And so that's one of the ways a startup can end.
Mm-hmm.
One of the interesting things about startups is that most of them actually fail. Okay, that's not good news. Everyone likes startups. They think they're kind of cool, but most of them fail. So only a small percentage actually succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually read an article. We read an article basically about the do's and don'ts of startups. So that was from inc.com, inc.com. And the author was actually someone who founded a startup. His name's AJ Agrawal. And so, Ghafran, I don't know if you have the article in front of you or
Yeah,
not.
I do. I do.
What was one of those that you found interesting? One of those do's and don'ts?
For me, I think the one about not disagreeing with the customer and always considering that the customer is right, because, you know, if you're starting a new business, and especially if it's a new idea, you want to gain people's trust and you want to gain new customers. So, like, you should always agree with them.
Yeah, that's really good.
Mm.
Being flexible, making changes.
Yeah.
Another one that I liked was failing fast. So if you're doing something and it's failing, go ahead and let it fail. That one's not necessarily second nature. I want to make something succeed and work hard, but rather it says one of the reasons startups fail is they only have a limited amount of money and time to succeed. So when they waste that time trying to make a bad idea work, they end up failing. They use up all their investment money and they fail. So just another one there. How about anybody in the comments? What do you think the differences are between working for maybe a normal, ordinary company and working for a startup? Can you think of any differences? We'll probably talk about those in just a minute, but feel free. I know we have a good group watching tonight, so you can let us know in the comments what you think the differences are. All right. I think one of the most famous or most well-known types of startup companies are tech companies as well. One of the interesting things about tech is you're going to need English because a lot of code language and a lot of tech clients are going to be international. And so if you're thinking startups, you may be thinking tech, and you may also be thinking English. That's one of the most, probably one of the most important things to having a successful startup is somebody who can communicate with all the kind of clients that you're going to run across. I'm going to read a comment here from Nabil. A startup is a risky project. You can earn a lot of money or you can lose too. Yes, that's certainly true. All right, well, let's take a look at some of those differences. Ghafran, you've got this article here. What can we expect if we're working for a startup and not for a normal company?
Just a second. So I think, well, you'll need to solve your problems on your own when you're working on a startup. So you have to be facing your problems alone, and you need to fix them in order for you to have a successful startup. Whereas in a company, you have people fixing that for you. You don't need to worry about, for example, losing a lot of money, because after all, like, you're an employee and your salary is stable. So I think this could be one of the differences. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, that's good. So you're going to need to be more creative.
Yeah.
You're going to need to have more initiative. You're going to need to be what we call autonomous. So I want to solve
Yeah.
my problems on my own
Yeah.
more than I want someone to have a department
Yeah.
for that or a coworker who
Yeah.
does that.
You'll be more
And another,
independent. And you'll
mhm,
have more room to experiment, to try new things, to be creative, like you said, and to, work on new things, new horizons. And I think it will make you more independent and more creative.
mhm,
Hmm.
yeah, maybe you won't be managed as closely as
Yes.
well, right? You won't have someone who's always watching you. You also won't have maybe your position is a new position. So there's not a lot of expectations for what
Yes.
your job role is. Rather, you're going to set those expectations with how you perform and with what you do in your job. So it's a great opportunity, but as we've said, it's also a risk because you don't
Mm,
have job security. Your company
true.
could fail. I think at least 20% of startups fail in the first year. And so then I think in the first 10 years, it's 70% fail within 10 years. So it's a big choice. It's a big risk. Do you want that
Yeah.
freedom? Do you want that autonomy? Do you want that new work environment? And is it worth taking that risk with people? Umaima commented, tech companies are less risky than startups. Very much so. So maybe because of how popular coding is right now and technology, it may be a safer kind of startup to work with.
Hmm.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment? What are some of the differences between working for a big company and a small company, or a startup and a normal company? Does anyone have any other differences? I have more if you don't.
Well, I guess also another difference, if you work for a big company, it could be, for example, an international company. So you'll be maybe a part of a global community, and then you can, meet a lot of people, meet different people from different fields. Whereas when you work in a small company, a small startup, like maybe that's limited, like you're not interacting with as many people and as many markets as if you're in a big company. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mhm. No, that's good. That's good. You do have more access to markets, more access
Yeah,
to, as Umaima
bigger
commented
markets, I think.
below as well, you'll be more surrounded by experienced people.
Mm-hmm. True.
So more structure, less freedom, more,
Mm,
maybe more opportunities. Uh, we could talk about opportunities laterally, left
mm-hmm.
and right, but
Yeah.
less opportunities vertically. So
Mm,
in a startup, after 3 months of good work, I may be promoted. My responsibilities may change. But
mm,
even if I'm a great employee at a very big company, I probably won't be evaluated every 2 months or 3 months. It'll be
yeah.
yearly. And so just some things to think about. A company that's really large does provide structure and safety, but some of these startups that are happening right now are really exciting too. And of
Mm,
course, who wouldn't want to be on a startup and then that startup becomes really big and gets bought by a massive company? So
yeah.
it seems like a great way up.
Yep.
Do you know any Tunisian startups? Does anyone know in the comments any startups in Tunisia? And tell me what they do as well if you do know them.
Mm,
While they're writing those comments,
yeah.
here's another one from Nabil. If you're an employee in the beginning of a startup and run it well, you'll get a big raise after the first year. That's right. You certainly would. I think
Yeah.
about Instagram when they got bought by Facebook, or even WhatsApp, I think also got bought by Facebook. And that was
Mm,
probably a pretty big change in those people's lives, right? And so
true.
there's this idea. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yusuf, there, I believe you're saying more security. in a big company.
Security and maybe stability also, because like you're pretty much everything is stable. You're not risking. You're not maybe you're not as stressed as if you're working in a startup.
I think employees who work in a startup are more invested in their company than people who just work in an ordinary company, for sure.
Yeah, true.
All right. Good. I know there's a lot of startups in Tunisia. I know there's a lot of tech startups as well here. But maybe we're not getting them in the comments today. Maybe it's just a Tuesday or something. So if you think of any, I'm sure there's plenty, and I know there are, but feel free to put those in the comments. So there's a lot of things to expect when you work for a company like this, but you can also find a lot of interviews of people who have made these famous startups. They do things like TED Talks. They're people who are well sought after for speeches and things like that. So if you want to learn more about a famous startup, it's really not that hard, especially since when you go to maybe a website like Kickstarter, where people are trying to start things, new companies. Kickstarter is a pretty famous place for startups. You can see how people are turning their product or their service into a story. So they make this YouTube video, or they make this, usually a video where they're trying to make you feel like your investment into their product is an investment into a story. And so one of the most important things for startups is, are they able to market themselves as a story, not just a product or service, but a real company story. All right, Kickstarter, and it's all in English. So if you're here to learn English, you can get some English practice in. Umaima says we can be better supervised as well in big companies, certainly. And supervision is a good thing, and maybe sometimes it can be stressful. So I don't know. Startups can be nice for that. Good. Any other comments about startups there, Ghofran?
No, I have nothing else to say.
All right. Well, we're about ready. So we're about to give away 2 weeks. So think about it. What did I say today? Well, if you can tell me three names of startup companies we mentioned, we will get in touch with you and give you a free 2-week subscription to Wall Street English. So come check us out, find out who the team is, get to know us, get to try out our awesome online platform and our classes. And so we would love to welcome you aboard. But if you could give me 3 of those company names we talked about, 3 of those startups, we'll get in touch with you. So we'll wait for that in the comments. I spoke about them near the beginning of the lesson. One of them was about maybe how people can stay, instead of staying in a hotel, they can do this. There was someone else that, all right. Well, we didn't say that Facebook was a startup, but you've got 2 of them, Nabil. Can you get me one more? We said Facebook bought some startups. One was about how you can rent somewhere. One was a messaging app.
Yeah. One was a movie-related app.
So Hashem, we didn't mention Snapchat, but they are a startup. Okay.
Mm,
We did. Okay, there you go, Nabil. All right, you got the other one, WhatsApp. All right, congratulations to Nabil, and we will get
congratulations.
in touch with you. We'll get in touch with you, and you will get your 2 weeks there. Netflix was also another startup we mentioned. Very good. All right. Viber. Okay, there you go. There's plenty of apps that started this way, and yeah. Well, great. Let us know in the comments what's your favorite startup. What's the one you maybe use every day, or the one you use most. But thanks again for checking in with us. Thanks, Ghafran, for being with us today.
Thank you for
And
having me.
yeah, so we will catch you all again next week, and we'll look forward to a new topic and a new winner. So thanks again, Nabil. We'll catch you next time. Okay. See if I can. All right. Have a great night.